I realized that I don't really know the people that I'm really dating and having sex with until it's too late. Growing up, I didn't have those conversations about sex with, like parents or anything. So I was just everything, especially in the Black community, is like, our conversations about sex is when you're younger, don't get pregnant, protect yourself, don't be gay.
And that's just from a female perspective. Now,
Yeah, which part?
I feel like y'all like, it's weird. All right. I've never done that before.
You never changed it once?
Party.
But no.
This is what porn does to us.
From a Black male perspective, I feel like I lucked out with my parents because we had conversations about that, like growing up, like when I was really young, really. But it's not a conversation that's had in depth. It's not. It's like it's basically just like get out there and just learn that shit on your own, like I had to do. Like that's kind of like, sometimes in a lot of households, that's the narrative. Like that's just like how it is. You're told to not do the wrong thing, but you're not told really what the right things are to do because even they don't know a lot of the time. So it's just like she said, it's like wrap up, be safe, don't get pregnant, don't fuck other dudes. Like I think the show is kind of like, well, at least for me, it's like therapy every week, even though they're not licensed. I mean, not saying that I'm licensed either, but it's really just like therapy because we get a chance to talk in an open forum, without judgment, or at least without judgment on our end. I don't know, maybe the other people judge us. I'm sure they do. Yeah. We really get to kind of have those conversations that maybe we didn't get to have while we were actually growing up, before we started experiencing it.
What kind of things have you guys learned in the process of making your show? Like, has it changed how you think about sex and your own sexuality? You kind of wanted it to.
I'm so much more comfortable with my sexuality.
Same.
And talking about sex, I never talked. I had to force myself. Like, this podcast forced me to talk about things I didn't want to talk about in regards to sex. And really, a lot of the times, like, having sex, as a woman, we don't really say what we like to do and be upfront with that, and it sucks because we just suffer in the bedroom. And now it's like I can have that conversation like, no, don't do this, I like this and I like it this way. And
you couldn't do that before the show?
No, not even. And even with dealing with people, dealing with guys, a lot of guys aren't comfortable talking about their sexual desires and wants, and so now we can have that conversation. I make it comfortable for you too, so now we can have a great sex life. And that was something that prior to the show wasn't having conversations about sex. It was more so, okay, well, what are we going to? We're going to, then, that's just that. But now we can really, what do you like? What do I like? And come together in that way.
Is that also a white issue? Or is that just, no, honestly, no. I mean, it sounds funny, but, obviously we're only talking, just see,
This is what we should do to avoid this whole weird blowjob thing. Why don't I just hand you the mic and you can just
okay.
It's more like self-relating versus.
Okay. But no, I mean it sounds funny when I say like, is that a white issue? But when we speak, obviously, we're speaking from our experiences, and that's the experience. When you're Black, like I can attest to the same thing she said. Like it's very difficult to have like that open dialogue about what you do like and what you don't like, and especially from a male perspective. Sometimes we've been like brainwashed to like think that liking certain things aren't manly or aren't manly enough, or if we like a certain thing, like it makes us less of a man. So I don't really know if it's just a Black thing, but I just feel like it's more like prevalent in the Black community. So that's why I asked. I wonder, is it like that, in the white community also, or is it just us? And I don't even want want to set you up to make a racist answer. I don't want you to be like, yeah, that's just y'all. But you know what I mean.
So, one of the things I was thinking about just in your earlier answer about sort of like, when you're black, it's like, these are the rules. You know, it's like, wrap it up, don't be gay. Like, that's a big thing. And I feel like there's, this is, I'm just going to say a bunch of generalizations and we're going to see what happens. So, I feel like one of the like cultural differences between like black people and white people at large is there's sort of like the religious aspect of black culture is more widespread, like in cities in particular. Like I feel like white people in cities are like just much more likely to be secular. And when it comes to issues around sexuality, that plays a big role in like sort of what divides the white community. It's like you have the evangelical white people who where, you know, the rules are stricter than what you said. It's just like, there's definitely the don't be gay thing, but there's also the just like, just don't do it until you're married kind of thing. And that's like a huge chunk of people. And one thing that's sort of come to my attention in the process of making the show and, you know, talking to a lot of white people is just how much shame there is out there about sex and sexuality. And I'll have this situation where someone will use the contact form to write to me on the show, and they're not revealing anything. They're basically just mentioning that they're listening to the show. And even that makes them so uncomfortable that they mention that they've put a fake email in. And they're like, you can't even know my identity because I'm just listening to people talk. Like, that's all it is. But it's just like, it implicates them in being a sexual person because they're interested in listening to sexual things. And then to like the macho thing, like I think there's certain type of white guys who have that sort of like, we need to be tough, we need to like if you go to Brooklyn, you know, like it sort of depends on where you are, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think I've said enough. I'm just thinking like anywhere I go from here is going to be just like even more general. But you know, like I don't know how like if you agree with sort of that assessment. I just think like it just seems like I think because of the historical role of the black church and the civil rights movement and all that sort of stuff, it's just like it's a bigger player. And when you talk about sex in the black community than when you talk about like sex with white people in Chicago, for instance. But if you want to talk about like sex with white people in Nebraska, right, then like what their pastor has to say is a huge part of like what they think of sexuality.
I think, and I reference baseball a lot on our show because I used to play baseball, and I used to, you know, be around a lot of white people, white guys. And I think the general perception coming from the black culture is white people seem to put more emphasis on just being pleasured, honestly. Like I felt like just this past year, ass play has been like a big thing on our show. Or whatever, you know, whether it's sticking a thumb up an ass or getting an ass licked or licking ass or whatever, except for her. she doesn't lick ass yet. But
how would you have to say yes?
She lost a bet to me, so she's not gonna lick my ass, but she's gonna be licking an ass. But anyway, but just something like that. Like I don't know if it was dugout talk. I don't know if it was just these particular white dudes that I was cool with, that I was around, but they had no problem. They had no shame in saying what it is that they enjoyed. Like if it would have been an all-black basketball team, and I would have been like, yeah, bro, I just got my ass licked, like I kind of would have been shunned or made fun of or ridiculed or definitely laughed at. But it was just like in that baseball atmosphere where it was a more diverse crowd, with the white guys saying it and just kind of like not being ashamed of it and kind of almost really being proud of it. It took a lot of like you could just tell that wasn't a thing for them to be ashamed about. The perception is that at least white women are like more uninhibited. or maybe white people are just more uninhibited for whatever reason. That's why I asked you the question, because you know, you're an actual white person. Like we're just making assumptions. I'm just saying, like we're just making assumptions.
On my birth certificate.
We're just making assumptions about what we think, but you'd be surprised as to the amount of assumptions that sound the same coming from one culture about another. And, you know, and vice versa.